Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making millions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/hidden. Protect yourself now at aura.com/hidden.
This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. 17 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasque, and I'm so glad you're here as we look at how to sell a house. Something that used to be easy, but the markets are changing, and buyers have more power. So it's very possible if you're planning to sell, you'll have to step up your game. And joining us now is a broker who really knows how to do that, how to make a great sale happen. Greg Herb is the broker owner and president of Herb Real Estate Incorporated in the Philadelphia area. Greg is the past president of the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, and he was awarded the National Association of Realtors' highest honor, its Distinguished Service Award. Greg, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
Good morning, Steve. Good to be with you today.
I am so glad you are here. And so, Greg, my number one question for you. Greg, if someone comes into your office and sits down and says, I want to sell my house, what's your first move?
Our first move is to actually physically do that walk through the property, interview with a client, let them interview us, and look at our marketing strategies, look at what things may or may not need to be done to the property to maximize their profit, to maximize the sale price of the property, and best position them in the marketplace for the most success. So we like to get in there early before someone says, hey, I want you to come out. We've heard this before, but I have a few things I want to do first, and then I'm going to have you out. And I'm going to say, not to interrupt you, I'd love to be out there early on, and let's have that conversation together, because there are so many things that you can do to best position yourself for more success, make your home stand out properly price that property, and really be set up for some success. And on top of that, we've actually stepped our game up in marketing. When people from the outside say, well, real estate's pretty easy today. I saw you had a listing and 3 days later it's sold. It's pretty easy out there. Well, we're actually doing as much or actually more marketing than we were doing a year ago. And that's really to showcase listings to maximize our clients' return on their investment and reduce the market time, as well as we hear the other thing being talked about, the competitive position our clients are put in when there's a lot of competition for their property. So it's going to help them all the way around. So we're still doing the full video tours on many of our listings, our virtual walkthroughs, professional photography. So it may not be as simple as it seems from the outside, but the inner workings of what we do is to really focus on our client.
The marketing is so important. But Greg, before we really dive into that, let me go back to something you just said, setting the right price. Mm-hmm. How do you come up with a competitive price that's going to bring in the buyers and not turn them away?
That's such an excellent question, because we hear in this market, some sellers say, well, it doesn't matter what price tag I put in on the property. There will be a bidding war, perhaps, if there are in a seller's market. And that's not always the case. You have to be smart, you have to be educated to the marketplace. And so, to your first question, you still go about that process by doing your comparative market analysis, look at the sales data in the area, make comparisons to those homes that have sold. Check your inventory out there, and the inventory is what is active in the price range of the subject property, and how do you position with them. If you're the highest property with the less bells and whistles, that's going to get the least amount of activity and not set you up for the kind of success you're looking for. By the same token, when we see properties that sell over list price, and again, our marketplace, we're seeing that on a fairly regular basis. One might arrive at a conclusion, not correct, that was a property priced properly or could have been priced higher. If you're pricing that property based upon factual data that we've obtained, we share with the client, we have that conversation as to why that property should be in X to Y range. Okay. Truly, it is the marketplace that's going to determine that final outcome. There are people willing to pay X percent or in dollars significantly more than that because they don't want to lose another house. And that's the house that they plan on spending the next 10, 15, 20 years, and if they did overpay a little bit, they're okay with that because that's going to be absorbed. Even if appreciation rates have slowed down in our area, I think I saw the last quarter to be in the 6% range. That's still a hefty return on their investment, and there's no slowing down on that. So you really can't make that mistake as long as you're getting some professional advice and some guidance. But starting with your question, pricing the property based upon market data is still critically important.
But I'm sure you still have sellers who hear you say, "Sir, I believe your house can bring in $800,000. And they reply, "Great, let's ask $1 million." What happens to that house, Greg?
You've talked to some of my clients because I've had some very, very similar conversations. And so what you can do there is really go back to data. Data is so important, not what I think or believe is happening, but show what's happening in the marketplace. And I'm going to use a reverse comment here, so to speak. If I have a listing that's on the market for, say, 3 weeks, that's normal in a normalized market. If that property is on the market 2 or 3 weeks in today's market in our region, another agent who's calling to show that property or may have an interested buyer, their first question is, what's wrong with the property? What do you mean? It's a great property. It's well maintained. There's no deferred maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it hasn't sold. So those who choose to list the property well above the recommended price range end up sitting on the market longer. And the reality of it is they've lost the golden opportunity. And that golden opportunity is when you have a property that first goes on the market, whether it's coming soon for a couple of days till the owner finishes some things up and then going active, but let's just say an active listing, that property and through the MLS systems and other marketing methods is being distributed across the board to many outlets, realtors, buyers, potential buyers, buyers who have search criteria registered to that particular criteria of the property. That is your best opportunity to maximize dollars. After you lose those first few days, or let's say it's a week to 10 days, who's your buyer? Who are you picking up? New people in the marketplace, because guess what, Stephen? All those other folks that are some of your most valuable buyers, you may have just lost. And the reality of it is, I see those homes selling less than what was recommended at the end of the day, because then they'll eventually, in your example, bring that property down to 950 or 900, and then 850, and they're going to get something in the 750 to 800 price range. And had they priced it properly in the beginning, I truly believe, and the data shows, they probably would have gotten that or better if they were priced competitively, and then you would have had a competitive situation with buyers. So overpricing your listing in any market is never good advice. And I think data will prove that and does prove that.
Greg, that is great information. But let me ask you about the balance between putting a lot of money into your house, hoping to get a higher sales price, or just leaving it as it is and settling for a lower price. How do you guide people through that big decision?
Well, first of all, many of the large expenditures do not have a dollar for dollar return. And so I use my dollar for dollar return. If I'm going to suggest my client invest a dollar, they better at least get that dollar or dollar 50 back. And on top of that, have the property more saleable at not only a better price, but in a more reasonable period of time with better success. So if people are doing, and if you look at this from any remodeling articles we put out from time to time, replacement windows, kitchen upgrades, bathroom upgrades, a brand new roof. Sometimes that's a necessary evil, and the downturn of not doing it has a more negative impact. But by and large, those items, if you go out there and spend $20,000 or $30,000 on whatever X was, tomorrow your property is not worth that much more. So the summary is that let an expert look at that property, suggest maybe restaging, maybe lighting up paint in a room or opening up a room a little bit more, throwing some mulch down, some flowers. A lot of times it's just some maintenance items, and to better enhance the appearance and showability of that property, those things are not by and large ticket expenditures. So the large ticket items generally will not bring you an immediate dollar for dollar return. And that's why having us out early rather than later is to work together on a list and prioritize what things are going to have the most impact on the property.
Greg, that is great. And it's true, of course, that not every seller has $20K in the bank that they can just write a check for and replace their roof.
Okay, you roof, and a case in point, I actually had last year. Some folks, wonderful people, wonderful client, nice home, immediately pulled up and said, new roof. I saw it buckling. You saw a couple missing shingles. And unfortunately, they were in a financial situation where they had no ability to facilitate that themselves. What did I do? When I got done with my tour of the property, sat down with them and said, one of the first things I'm going to do is get you one or two estimates from a local roofer. And they looked at me and said, what don't you understand? We know we need a new roof. We can see that. But unfortunately, financially, we can't afford to do so. I said, I totally understand that. I totally appreciate and respect that. But what happens in that situation, Stephen, is buyers will come in and subconsciously assign a much greater number to a maintenance item or something of significant portion that needs to be done. And while sellers will tend to underestimate those costs, the reality of it is the true cost is somewhere in between. And in this situation, in summary, what I did was obtain those two estimates, put it out there with a seller disclosure. Our state is a seller disclosure state. And it kind of says to everybody, hey, folks, we acknowledge the fact that this roof has seen better days and probably has to be replaced in the short term. And we're providing with two well-known expert roof companies who provided estimates. And we put that there. So one was we were saying we know to potential buyers this is an issue. Help you out. We're actually putting some estimates here. Ironically, the estimate was far less than what even my seller thought it would be. And the home sold very quickly with a buyer saying, I can get a better price than that. Now, if I hadn't had that out there, they would have, I guarantee you, subconsciously or would have assigned a much greater number. So there are ways to deal with those things in a strategic way that preserves my client's equity and in the end of the day actually brings them more money.
Greg, that is a great strategy. And one other thing it produces is trust. For every buyer looking at that house, you've disclosed it, you've given them the price, there's no hiding the bad roof, you've put it right out front, and every buyer will trust you because of that.
I mean, and again, I think in anything that we do, it is always as us as realtors, our client comes above all other interests, including our own. So obviously, our recommendations are always what's the best interest of our client to best serve them, whether it's preserving their equity or whether it's helping them to get into their first home, is to really find those things that will have the biggest return and best benefit to our client.
Greg, that is just wonderful. Now, so far we've talked about price and we've talked about condition. But now, let's get really cutting edge and talk about a virtual 3D tour of the home, what it is, how it works, and why it helps a house sell faster.
Great question, Steve. A virtual tour is actually, there are several software companies out there that actually blend in some positive use of AI. That actually comes in, and the piece of equipment larger than a camera is set on a tripod, and the photographer person is going to take that throughout the house and place that to build out the floor plan. Number one, it provides a floor plan of the property. More importantly, it actually provides a 360 view of that home and has a whole lot of other bells and whistles that come with it. But in essence, what it does, when a potential buyer opens that up, they actually are inside the house, and then using their finger, they can actually tour the house, literally as they were standing there. Look up at the ceiling, look down at the floor, look at every crevice and corner of the particular property, see the whole floor plan of the property. And they come to that showing extremely knowledgeable about the property. I always used to say that the first time somebody looks at a property, it's probably their third time, and people look at me odd and say, "That's a really odd statement. What do you mean?"
I've heard you say that before.
No, I say that because I tell a client the first impression starts with photography is so important. So, what captures a potential buyer's interest is photography. We invest in some top quality professional photography because we want to showcase that house in the reality of what it is. They're not, filtered or buffed up pictures. They're the actual pictures of the property. And so a person looks at that. Many times, if they're in close proximity, the second thing they're going to do is a drive-by. Whether they do a drive-by or not, they're going to use a program like a Google map or some other mapping program and look at the aerials, look at the surroundings, look at the property borders, how close the school is, et cetera, et cetera. So do they actually step foot and cross that threshold? It's actually their at least third or more times that they have seen something. Now, the virtual tour actually lets you go through the basement, the main floor, upper floor, attic, if applicable, and you can actually tour that property. The neat part of that is I just recently sold a home that was colonial in design, stone, and just a really neat colonial home. But once you peeked inside, Stephen, the property was very Victorian. Now, what made it Victorian? Wasn't the kitchen, wasn't the hardwood floors. It's the area carpets, the oriental carpets, the furnishings, lots of antiques, absolutely gorgeous. But if you actually don't like Victorian furniture, the 3D, most of them allow you to click a button, and guess what happens? The furniture disappears. And so AI builds out the rest of the room exactly as it is, can give you measurements, not only length and width of a particular room, maybe between a window and a doorway, etc., ceiling heights, everything within fractions of an inch. So you can floor plan your whole property, remove the furniture, put it back in, measuring tape that you can actually use your finger to point from A to B, determine that span, that distance, see if it's going to work for your treasured grandfather clock or a side piece in the dining area, whatever you may have. It lets you build that out. And time again, buyers have said, not only is it the seller love it because they have a permanent photography of their property, but for a buyer, it allows them to place their furniture. It allows them to experience and know more. So they're a more informed buyer. So while we're representing the seller in the situation you described, we want to give that buyer as much information to make an informed decision and ultimately a better and higher price for our client with having that additional information. So it's a huge plus. Yes, we use irregular videos. We still do a lot of drone photography, as well as the still pictures throughout. So it is a significant investment that we're putting up front for the expected better return for our client.
And another big part of selling your home that has been successful for decades, a part that actually makes houses sell faster and for more money. Tell us, Greg, is staging still as powerful and important as it's always been?
Absolutely, it is. We tend to accumulate a lot of things, or as I say, sometimes stuff. I'm a gatherer. Thankfully, my wife is not, and she keeps me in line. But over time, admittedly, we all tend to gather. I'm going to keep that, not get rid of it. I haven't used it in a period of time, whether it's cleaning out your closet, just your garage, your basement, or just over furnishing a house. And when staging and being a practitioner for over 4 decades, staging was not a terminology used in my infancy in my career. And when people first started talking about it, admittedly, I'm saying that's some sexy term that doesn't really matter. People are not buying your furniture, they're buying the house. That's dead wrong. If they can actually visualize themselves in that home a lot easier or better, or the house shows better with that, less to do, it just resonates to a much better opportunity. And so we've had a property that may have sat in the market for 3 or 4 weeks. We'll even bring in sometimes someone from the outside and say, we want another, third party outside opinion. What other things can be done to better stage or showcase this particular property? That colonial home I referred to a few moments ago, I actually had them remove some furniture just because they tended to be a collector of antiques. They were absolutely drop dead gorgeous. They were the finest quality, but it overwhelmed the room at times. And I wanted people to feel freer to and open up the room and better and more easily place their furniture. So we tend to overfurnish things at time, and so the depersonalized declutter that always applies, but take staging to that next level. It might be lightening up some colors in a particular room, or other things. Simply put, one of the biggest things that costs the least amount. Most times, people are doing low voltage light bulbs. We tend to all have them in certain areas of our home. But when I turn that light on in the powder room that may not have a window in it, I want that to showcase that. And a lot of times I'll say, do you mind tucking those lower voltage light bulbs in a bag for use later, and then just putting a little bit higher wattage in, because it just makes the house look cleaner, brighter, sharper with more light. So lighting can be really important, besides the things that we already presumed or assumed are part of the staging process.
And so, Greg, when it comes to getting an offer, tell me this. If a seller gets one offer, or two offers, or 20 offers, how do you handle it, and how do you explain the offers to the seller so they'll know which is the best option?
We actually are in a situation where we're seeing basically across the board multiple offers. And so when we see those multiple offers, what we do is actually put them on a spreadsheet. Our agreements of sale in my particular state are 11, 12 pages long, plus endorsements, plus seller disclosures, plus everything else. And if I'm sending my client, 30 pages or something, they're going to throw their hands up in the air. So what we do is take the salient facts. What's the purchase price? What's the down payment? What's the settlement date? Mortgage or no mortgage? How much of a mortgage? Do they have their pre-qualification? What things are including, excluding? And so I hate to use the old Ben Franklin approach, but it kind of is. It lists each and every one of those properties with a comparable table you can easily look at, and then dig down deeper as we have questions on them individually. So it takes the hardcore facts of, all those terms, and you look at it very easily, and it makes that process so much smoother and affords the client a little bit better time to digest that information. And keep in mind, everyone says, which is the highest price? The best offer is price, terms, and conditions. So all three things are there. And then the more difficult question is, sometimes you have something that an offer that might be a couple bucks more, but the next one in line maybe has less resistance or less contingencies, or might be cash or a lower mortgage amount, or have something else that is more favorable to the seller than a small difference in price. So it's not always the highest price, it's price, terms, and conditions that weigh and win the day.
And so, Greg, your firm sold 7 homes in 1 week. Greg, how did you do it? And what can the possible sellers listening to this right now learn from it?
Great question, Stephen. And just to clarify, we're a smaller boutique office. We have one office. and about 20 agents. So to put things in perspective, many offices in our region, have 50, 100, 200 agents in their office. So putting things in perspective, we choose to be the size we are for a reason. But to your question, it's really deploying some of the strategies we talked about early on, taking that time to evaluate the property, pricing the property properly, doing the things that are going to stage the house, make those improvements that are going to have the greatest success for that particular client. When you put that whole package together, and for any seller, no matter where you're at, get the professional advice of a realtor who can provide data and information that's going to help guide you in that path forward to have the best success. Certainly, the other things we talked about, Stephen, I think the additional marketing, advertising, things that we're doing to reach potential buyers, a greater number of buyers, all have a positive impact on the results that we're seeing for our sellers. So again, we're still in a seller's market, and really enjoying the opportunity to make a lot of sellers very, very happy today.
Well, Greg, I've got to tell you, every time I talk to you, I learn so much. And I really want to thank you for being on the show today and telling us about cutting-edge seller strategies in today's market and what every seller should know. Greg, thank you.
Stephen, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. I don't look at this as an interview. We're just having a good old conversation, and hope that your listeners can certainly glean some positive or helpful things that will help ensure their success as well.
Thank you, Greg. Greg Herb, the broker owner and president of Herb Real Estate Incorporated in the Philadelphia area. Greg is the past president of the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors and a recipient of the National Association of Realtors' highest honor, its Distinguished Service Award. Next time on Real Estate This Week, more top real estate experts share their knowledge with you as the summer of 2026 continues. It's one hot market, and we'll have red hot advice. That's next on Real Estate This Week. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasque, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque drops every weekend, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.
You know that music? That's the sound of shopping for car insurance the old way. Life's too short for that. Jerry makes car insurance easier. Open the app, answer a few questions, and Jerry pulls up to 20 quotes from top insurers. Then choose and switch right in the app. No re-entering your information. No saxophone solos. And Jerry keeps checking rates for you. So you're not back on hold 6 months from now. Visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today.